Hi friends! So this is an entirely different type of video that I am used to doing, so please bear with me. I wanted to have a conversation with you about Brooke. At first I was going to write about her and my perspective, just share my perspective after she passed away with what I believe is her legacy, but trying to think of the right words to write on paper and going through all that editing and all that nonsense just didn't seem like I would really get the point across. I just really want to talk to you about Brook. So just to share a little bit of a backstory, I'm going to try and make this as brief as possible. There's a lot to fit in. Of course, she was just fiery spirit. All that who know her understand what I mean. So I've known Brooke since middle school, and back then it's like everybody was friends. I mean, at that age there really wasn't, too much to fight and argue about, and the cliques didn't really start until high school. So we were friends in middle school and through high school. Even though we weren't in the same circles, we were always nice to each other and just part of each other's childhood. So after high school, everyone kind of went their separate ways. Her and I did not keep in touch, and it really wasn't until just a handful of years ago where we reconnected on Facebook, which I know a lot of people bash Facebook, but for me it's been a blessing for reasons like this. Like most of my clients from Facebook, which is a high percentage, and I'm so grateful for. Brooke was following me and following my post about fitness, and she really got pulled in and really was wanting to get back in shape. She mentioned on comments, and I was just getting those type of comments like, I want to get back in shape, I want to work out with you, really want to feel better about myself. And so I would just answer like I do, get in touch with me, let's make it happen, I want you to feel good, it's been so long. And then I wouldn't hear from her for a while, and then she'd get back in touch again through a post. I'm really serious, I want to do this. And so I had sent her a message and, just asked a couple of questions and just asked her what she was really looking for. And she said, really hate my belly. I don't feel good about myself anymore like I did. I just want to get all that back. And so I did explain to her about my coaching and just basically told her that the way I coach is not just about exercise and nutrition, that we really go deep into emotional health, because one of the reasons why she's not feeling good about herself and she's put on extra weight is there's something there that she needs to deal with that's deeper than just the physical. And after saying that, it was like crickets. I didn't hear. Again, I crack up because this is just typical of us women. This is what we do. When we hear something we don't like, we just kind of run away and run in the other direction. So I didn't hear from her for a little while, and she did again reach out, and this time she was really serious. She said she was ready, and she was ready to let her guard down and talk to me, and really wanted to hire me as a coach. So I said, awesome. So we had our first phone call, and it was a long visit. We caught up on all, the fun stuff growing up and becoming moms and having kids, and then we got into some deeper conversation. And I just want you to know that everything I share with you is not anything I haven't spoke about before. I only speak about personal information that Brooke has given me permission to share. I've written an article about all this already that's still on my website because she's just such an inspiring story. So some of you haven't read that article, so I just wanted to give a backstory. So Brooke shared with me that she had been going through a really difficult time for a couple years, and she was in a very dark place. It started with her marriage ending, and she took it very hard, even though it was a mutual decision. She looked at it as she failed, and it was very upsetting for her, and she was very depressed about it and started turning towards alcohol for comfort and pretty much to try and drown out some of that pain. And then she got laid off from the job that she was at that point, and said it was just a downward spiral. She went into a deep depression, really started drinking a lot, pretty much from morning to night, started gaining a bunch of weight, which compounded the problem. She went from the sexy woman to feeling great about herself, always sassy and fun, and now she just, in her words, pretty much hated everything about herself and how much self-destructive behavior she had turned to. And I just listened, and what was the breaking point for her was, at that point, her son Garrett was 15, still in high school, and Brandon's older. But it was Garrett that walked in, and she had been drinking all day, and he saw the bottles on the floor, and he just looked at her and said, "If you don't clean up your act, I'm going to go move with my dad." And that crushed her. Crushed her. It needed to be said. She needed to hear it. And for her, that was the breaking point she needed. It was a catalyst for change, and she knew it was time, because her sons are everything to her, and she wanted to make them proud, and she was ashamed, and she wanted to make herself proud again. So she was ready to do whatever it took. So from that point forward, and this was a handful of years ago, I believe 4, she never took one more sip of alcohol, and did everything to turn her life around, like a total 360. She changed her eating habits. She changed the choices that she would use to relieve stress. Of course, exercise became her stress release. She started letting her walls down and opening her heart and bleeding the pain and slaying all her demons. That takes so much. That takes so much courage. And I've been coaching women for, since 2004, after I went through my own transformation. So I know what it feels like, And it's an honor for me to share such a personal journey with so many women like Brooke. It's really incredible just to see a person go from such despair to witness a person go from despair and such a dark place to fighting. To the completely opposite side, and that's what she did. So within 6 months, Brooke lost 30 pounds, which she was thrilled about, of course, because she no longer had what looked like a 9-month pregnant belly. She had a flat midsection. She was feeling energetic. She was feeling confident, sexy, more in control, and just really took her power back and was starting to create the life that she really wanted to live. And there was still work to be done on the emotional level, and that journey never really stops, does it, for all of us? So we kept working, and within 1 year, she legitimately looked like a fitness model, just beautiful and physically, head turning, and emotionally was becoming healthier and healthier. And it's like I always say, it has to be both. It has to be physical and emotional. She had become an inspiration to many, even people she didn't even know would reach out to me, would reach out to her, how much her story had inspired them to take better care of themselves. She's pretty much one of mine. I'm blessed to have many women who inspire so many, including me. You guys are what keeps me going. So fast forward to about a year ago, when Brooke started to feel pain in her hips and her lower back. She had just come back from, actually it was 2 years ago, but it got really bad last year. She had come back from a hiking trip in California, and she had taken a fall and hurt her back pretty bad, and the doctor even said if she wasn't in such great physical shape, it could have been really life-changing. She was healing from it, but she was still having some nagging pain. And so last fall, it was starting to get worse in her hips. And when you train as hard as we do, of course, you're going to have aches and pains, and you just, you do the normal things. You ice, you go to the chiropractor, you go to massage therapy. We had to change up her training and really start laying off her lower body until she could heal, which she was pissed off about, because when we are used to training and it's part of our life, we get pretty pissed off when we're sidelined and can't work out. It becomes that much part of your life. It means a lot as far as energy and stress release. And you always have your physical goals, because we always want more. So that's pretty much where we were at last fall. And Brooke and I kept in contact on the daily basis, like I do with many of my clients. It's a very personal relationship that is formed, and pretty much my clients become my family. And so I would know with just one word on a text that she wasn't feeling good or something was wrong, and I would pick up the phone and call her. I was starting to worry because something wasn't adding up. I have a nursing background, and I knew there was something wrong. It wasn't just that, she had an injury. So as things progressively got worse, the pain was hindering her job performance. She was having to leave work. She couldn't sleep. And so I told her, we need to get an MRI. We need to get to the bottom of it. Because of insurance and the way things are, that's a whole nother video. They really dragged their feet on the MRI. At one point, Brooke called me in tears from work. Couldn't think, couldn't speak. She was in so much pain. I said, go to the ER. So she went to the ER. They just put her on pain pills, sent her home. She called the doctor. The doctor said he wanted to send her to a pain management clinic. Those of you who know me know that I have a very foul potty mouth. I was pissed. Because how are you going to send somebody to a pain management clinic and start putting them on controlled substances when you don't even know where the pain is coming from? So I wasn't mad at Brooke, but she heard me, and I pretty much just told her, call your doctor and demand a fucking MRI. Enough is enough. So she did that, and they did. And at that point, what showed up was something wrong with her kidney as far as her ureter goes. And she sent me the report, and there was this one sentence that said, bone marrow appears abnormal. And at that point, I knew something was very wrong, and that I suspected whatever was going on in her bone marrow was what was causing her a lot of pain. We are now in January with this story of this year, and they had done a procedure on her kidney, which is not really significant. They had to put a stent in her ureter. And when I talked to Brooke on the phone, I could hear in her voice she was in just pure agony. I got in my car and I drove to her. She lives 2.5 hours away. I needed to see her, and I wanted to look at her physically and just look in her eyes, and so I got there, and I could just see that she was so uncomfortable. She would literally have to rock back and forth, and it just wasn't right. Something was being missed. She kept going in to the doctor. They kept giving her more pain meds and telling her that her pain was from spasms because of the procedure they did with her ureter. Bullshit. Speeding up the story, on February 5th, I remember I was with my brother for his surprise 50th, and I got a text that she went into the ER because she had bruising on her lower body and on her feet. Finally, thank God there was a doctor there who was listening to her complaints of pain and everything that had transpired. He ordered every test imaginable, MRIs of everywhere, and scans, and her whole body lit up. Lesions on her spine, lesions on her kidney, lesions in her bone marrow, even on her lung. And he, at that point, was the first to say, we suspect cancer. She was admitted, and they, after a couple of days, were able to diagnose the cancer cell, which was signet cell carcinoma. It is one of the most, I don't know about the most, it is a very rare cancer. And from everything we know about it and everything we researched, it doesn't respond to chemo. A very poor prognosis, terminal. So at that point, her local doctor, oncologist that was assigned to her, ran scared, and I'm not even kidding. It was way over his head. He said there was nothing he could do. He was ready just to pretty much send her to hospice, and the end of that. She had just been diagnosed. We started, meaning myself and her close friends. She's so blessed with close friends, and her family trying to desperately get her into a research cancer facility that would take her case. It's not as easy as people think. And she was at that point in really bad shape. She was very sick. Her platelets were very low. She could not be discharged from the hospital, and a lot of research hospitals, all of them pretty much, require you to be discharged before they will see you, because a lot of their treatments are clinical trials and you have to be somewhat stable. At that point, she was not. She was very sick. Trying to speed up the story, thankfully, they were able to give her a chance at Shands in Gainesville and agreed to review her case. When her friends drove her there, she literally stayed in the head physician's, the director's office, because there was no beds, and he was going to admit her, but she literally stayed in that office until they had at least a bed in the transition unit. And I drove to Gainesville when they made the decision they were going to admit her under the agreement that she was going to accept treatment. That's what she was there for. Just so you know, Brook was only the 5th known case of this type of cancer. It originated in her colon, but is very aggressive and spread very quickly. And because it was in the bone marrow, that's what the biggest complication was. There was no surgery. It was affecting her ability to make platelets, and that was making her very sick. She was at risk of death even at that point. So when I went to Gainesville, her beautiful friend, I'm not sure if she wants me to share her name, was there. She's been here with her from California at her side, and I was there, and all of us are pretty much in disbelief. It's all very surreal. Things are happening really fast. And I remember sitting there, still in the transition unit. So it looks like an emergency room. It's like a triage. And one of the physicians, there's a million physicians there because it's a teaching hospital. She had the task of asking Brook to sign consent forms to accept chemo treatment. At that point, they were going to give her the largest dose possible of a mix of medications. That really was the only way to try and treat this and back it off so that she can produce more platelets and stay alive. So because of my nursing background, it's like too much. So I'm sitting there, and the doctor approaches Brook and has papers in her hands and explains to Brook that she needs to sign these consent forms so she can get chemo immediately. They wanted to get it ready, prepare it so she can get it at least the very next day. So Brooke was quiet and she was thinking. It's so much to process. And she was almost not wanting to sign the papers. And the doctor looked at her and said, Brooke, if you don't get chemo and we don't start it tomorrow, you will die in 2 weeks. So can you even imagine sitting in a triage unit, hearing those words, you're sitting there, you're, aside from your pain, she's this Barbie doll, beautiful, young, top fitness shape, strong, and somebody's telling her she could die in 2 weeks if she doesn't start treatment. That's how aggressive this cancer cell is. So Brooke shares my potty mouth too, and I just looked at her face and she was in complete disbelief. It was horrifying, the look on her face, and she literally just screamed and looked at the doctor and was like, "What the fuck are you saying?" And in that moment, I was pretty just much numb, and I knew I just had to be there for her and convince her to sign those papers. And before she signed the papers, the doctor went on to say that even with chemo, your life will only be extended 6 more months. She just sat there and sobbed. Someone's telling you you only have 6 months to live, even with treatment. But that's the only chance she had, so I just kicked in and just pretty much explained to her that this is why we needed an appointment. We needed to come and at least give her a fighting chance. Everybody was writing her off already. She needs to just try anything. And that's why we went to Shands, is for treatment. That there was no time. And maybe she could be that miracle. She could be the 5th case they write about that actually survived this cancer. She signed the papers. So brave, so courageous. They transferred her up to her room, and that began her fight against this cancer that was eating her alive, literally taking her life. So that same day, another doctor came in and wanted to talk to her about signing a DNR. So for those of you who are in the medical field or don't know what DNR is, it is a form that states you will not be resuscitated. It is a do not resuscitate consent agreement, contract. So if your heart stops or you stop breathing, they won't do anything to revive you or try and bring you back to life. So She had just heard that she could die in 2 weeks if she didn't do chemo. She heard that even with chemo, she will die in 6 months, and this doctor comes in telling her to sign a DNR. Stone-faced, she looked at him with her piercing, beautiful blue eyes that are now just ice, and explained to him, told him, with no tears, she said, "Let me tell you something, doctor. I beat alcoholism all by myself. I didn't go to meetings. I just decided to stop and worked really hard to turn my whole life around. I got in tip-top shape. I continued to do everything to improve my health, physically and emotionally. Do you understand how hard that is? How much courage, how proud of myself I am?" She told him. She goes, "I will not sign a DNR and give up my life after taking it back." And he just hung his head. A physician with who knows how many degrees and hours of training. And absolutely, he had to ask the question. Everybody in the medical field knows that's one of the things you have to ask. It just wasn't the right time. And she let him know exactly how she felt about it. And he hung his head and he said, "You're very courageous and brave, and you should be very proud of all of your accomplishments." And he said, "You need to keep fighting." And he walked out the door. And that's the thing, is that Brooke was very proud of herself. And no matter how difficult things got, she met them full force with courage. She was brave. She was always positive. And throughout her 7-month battle of fighting, she was always uncomfortable, always in pain. She never would say something negative, and anybody that visited her knows that. And I was just in complete awe, almost just humbled, just watched her with so much determination on her face and courage. And anything she ever said was, "After I beat this, and when I go back to the gym, and I can't wait to do this," and that's where her mind was always. And I know that's why she was around a bit longer than most people probably thought she was going to be. Even as her body started failing and withering away, you never know it, just listening to her voice and her sassiness and her wittiness and still laughing and making jokes. And she was so proud of herself all the time. Amazing. And I just kept getting stuck. I was so pissed off. This isn't fair. This isn't fair. I'd, drive home after every time seeing her. I had a long drive home and I'd cry. I'd get pissed off. Just so stuck on, this isn't fair. Why is this happening? She doesn't deserve it. So frustrating. I know a lot of you share that same perspective with me. Just not right. It's not right. She's so young. She just turned her whole life around. She bought her house a couple years ago all by herself. She was so proud of herself to do that. So proud. She just bought her dream car 2 months before she was diagnosed. She was almost ready to retire. She had a couple years left at her job before her 20-year mark. big plans. She was just really getting ready to live the life that she was so excited about, and being proud of herself and being such a great role model to her children. And then this happened. So I'm going to fast forward to my last visit with Brooke. And I knew it was going to be the last visit. Brooke at this point was still mentally strong as hell. Damn it, she's just so amazing. But her physical body was not keeping up. And at this point, she was receiving hospice home health care at home. And it was to the point where she really needed to go inpatient because her pain wasn't being managed, because they're limited on what meds they can give at the home. She needed to be inpatient so she could get the pain relief that she deserved. She shouldn't be having any pain. But there were a couple of things holding Brooke back. Anytime she heard the word hospice, she felt like she was giving up. If she went in, she just looked at it like she was going in there to die, which I understand. It's really not what hospice means. She could literally get stronger without being in so much pain and go back home. And we were explaining that to her. But it was at a point where she needed 24-hour care, and just with the circumstances at home, it was not happening. It wasn't able to happen. And so the other thing that was holding Brooke back from going into inpatient hospice was that her mom passed away at that house. So there was some scary reasons for her why she didn't want to go in. And she was fearful and kept resisting. And so when I went to visit her, that was my mission, was to help her understand why it was so important for her to go into hospice. I knew my work was cut out for me because Brooke is very strong-willed and stubborn, and it has to be her choice, but I love her. I love her, and no matter how hard or uncomfortable, I was going to help her understand she needed to go in. So that day I was there, and we spent time, we laughed, and we talked, and I brought it up. I said, Brooke, you're in pain. They can't relieve that pain here at home. You need a pump, and you need better medications, and the only way to do that is to go into the hospice house, and they'll take care of you around the clock. Anything you need, they'll cook for you. They're there to watch you and make you comfortable. It's a peaceful place. There's not the stress of everything going on around you. Do it for yourself. I explained to her that she deserves to be treated like a queen, and she deserves to be pain-free. And so she sat quietly and listened, and I told her that I understood her fears, but I also knew that she was courageous and she needed to do this for herself because she earned it. So she said to me, well, I just want to go see this place. It was really funny the way she said it. Like she was going to go buy an apartment. I just want to go check it out and see this place. Come with me. Like, I need you to come with me to do that. I said, okay. By this time it was like 4 or something. And so I called immediately and asked if we could come for a visit and explain the situation. And they said, absolutely, you need to get here before 6 o'clock so the nurse can spend time with Brooke and talk to her and answer all her questions so that she feels more at peace about going. So I said, okay, we gotta go now. She's like, wait, I gotta change out of my sweats. And I said, why? You're so comfortable. And she's like, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving the house like this. So I said, okay. So we went in her room. She hurried along with her little walker. Telling you, she's just amazing. Her strength, her inner strength, her mind. And we got her palazzo pants on, and I said, we got to get a different top. And she was, I want to wear my Proud tank top. I said, okay. So we put that on, and then we're getting ready to leave. She goes, wait, I got to go in the bathroom. I go, okay. She's like, I got to put on mascara. And I was laughing. I said, okay. So she, beautiful eyes, put on her mascara. I'm still trying to get her out of the house because we really need to go. And she grabs her gold hoop earrings and her new leather purse that one of our friends sent to her. She's ready to go. So I load her up in the car, and we were just jamming to a bunch of classic rock, and I could just see her right now. She had on her gold hoops and sunglasses, and she's just dancing. Man, you have some great tunes. And she's just singing, and we're driving to Hospice House. And it was really a fun car trip. I loved to see her smiling and laughing. So we got there. I could tell she was nervous, and we got in. The nurses were incredible, compassionate, answered every question. They told us about their porch outside that was beautiful. I took her out there, and it was so peaceful, and beautiful benches, and that's the picture that I took of her that I shared on Facebook. She's sitting on the bench, and the breeze is blowing, and it's just so beautiful out there, and it was sunny, and she says, take a picture of me. And so I did. Just let me see it. And I showed it to her. And she goes, I don't look so bad. Bless her heart. I said, you look beautiful. And still I'm so pissed off because she didn't deserve this. It's not fair. And she's sitting there smiling about her picture. And her physical body is failing her. So we talked for a little bit, and we sat there, and then it was time to go home. And on the way home, she said that she was ready to go into hospice, inpatient, and she felt peaceful there, and like they were really going to take good care of her. And I said, awesome. And I told her how courageous she was. And she goes, I'm really proud of myself. I said, you should be. She's been so proud of herself for so many years since our first phone call. What an incredible feeling to feel proud of yourself. No one can give you that. It's something that you give to yourself. So we're on our way home, and we're almost to her house, and I'm driving, and she leans right in front of me, and she goes, turn here. I'm like, okay. So I like pulled in. I'm like, what? We pulled into Sonic. I've never been to Sonic. I have been to McDonald's and, Burger King, whatever. Never to Sonic. I said, what are we doing here? And she's like, I want tater tots and a lemonade slushie. I said, okay. So we got it for her, and she's eating it on the way home, and we get to her house, and I got her comfortable, and I started texting our close circle because they were waiting to hear about how it went going to see hospice. And she says, Lisa. And she was on the couch and I was on the chair, and I looked up and she goes, I'm actually excited to go into hospice house. And that was the first time I've seen her with such a peaceful look on her face. It was like everything was relaxed. And this weight had been lifted off her shoulders. And she said, I think I'm gonna like it there, and it's gonna be comfortable and peaceful. And I said, yes, and you deserve that. And then she just went back to her phone, and I kept texting. And it was time for me to go. And she says, can you do me one more favor? I said, anything. Will you make me some chicken noodle soup? So I got her all set up. She had her soup, and she was comfortable. And I kissed her on her cheeks and on her forehead and hugged her and drove home. I knew that was going to be the last time I saw her. I got in my car, did the same thing. Just sad and stuck, not fair. And the next day she went into hospice. They admitted her in, and she was starting to have some uncomfortable days. Her body was failing. And a week later she passed away. And immediately the day after, we were awaiting a hurricane, and I was sitting and processing everything. And it finally hit me. Life isn't fair. Who said it's going to be fair? Who said it's going to be easy? This could happen to any of us. It could have been me. We can die overnight. It happens every day, whether it's a car accident, craziness that happened in Las Vegas. Like, things happen all the time. People get sick. Totally sucks. Especially watching someone like Brook, who turned her whole life around. And that's the message. Here's the legacy that Brook left me, and I want to pass it on to you. First, no matter how long you've been traveling in the wrong direction, you can always choose to turn it all around and go in the right direction and make yourself proud. And here's the most important lesson I've learned: since we don't know how much time we have, tomorrow is not guaranteed. We talk about that all the time. Live every day being proud of yourself, whatever that means to you. She was always courageous. She did what it took. She slayed her demons. She wasn't perfect. None of us are. You slide back, you go forward. But she kept getting up and she kept going forward because she wanted to be proud of herself again. And she wanted her sons to be proud of her. She wanted to be a positive role model for them and for herself and for others. And she made all those changes, all that work. So brave, took so much courage to become proud of herself without ever knowing what was going on inside her body, and that her days were numbered. So don't wait until somebody tells you that you don't have a lot of time left. Do it for yourself. I can't think of a more admirable way to leave this earth than to leave being proud of yourself. Thanks, Brooke.